as well as increased revenues. Those are kind of the three metrics we use as kind of our reason for being in the Internet of Things space.
David?
Working now? Great. So I'm David King, CEO of Foghorn. Foghorn is a Silicon Valley software startup founded a couple years ago. I joined about 18 months ago to take it out of a big data incubator in Palo Alto called the Hive, where Marc Capital has a stake, and turned it into a real company. We made a lot of progress since I was here last year. We raised a significant Series A round about 9 months ago with GE, Bosch, Yokogawa, EMC, and Dell all investing. So it's a very different kind of a round, very corporate and very industrial. Guarantee you there's never been a syndicate like that in Silicon Valley for an A round. We have made a lot of progress on the product. We are now integrating our stack into GE's Predix end-to-end IoT, industrial internet platform. We'll be shipping middle of this year. We've also won now a couple more OEMs. Yokogawa has been announced, and a couple others have already decided to use Foghorn. So our technology is really a platform at the edge for high-speed analytics, machine learning, and AI. And so think of all the concept of IoT when we entered the scene 18 months ago was, hey, create a digital twin of all the machines and the processes in the cloud by shipping all the data to the cloud and providing all that big data analytics and machine learning there. Reality is happening exactly the opposite, exactly the way that we forecasted, which is you don't want to basically ship all this raw, unfiltered, dirty OT data to the cloud to gain insight and to build models. What you want to do is build a digital twin next to the machine in small footprint, running high-speed compute on streaming data, and that's essentially what we've done. So our stack's now being integrated into a large number of the industrial automation, factory automation platforms. So we're now think of IoT as progressing from sensorizing individual machines and trying to get insight about the individual machine to looking at the site and looking at the process. So it's the factory, it's the oil field, it's the wind farm, right? So we're kind of taking to the next level in industrial. Like Marc's company, we serve a wide range of industries: manufacturing, energy, transportation, smart cities, smart buildings, huge number of use cases. So think of it as a very horizontal compute layer at the edge, which is very unique. We're the only ones doing it this way versus trying to do all the insight in the cloud. That's Foghorn.
So every one of you talked about efficiency, right? That's the fundamental hype in IoT. That's the only reason IoT exists, right? One of the main reasons.
Not necessarily, no. I would say that a lot of it is, of course, process efficiencies, cost savings, especially in the industrial sector, right? You're talking $11 trillion in manufacturing, $7 trillion in energy. How do you, in a $50, $60 oil environment, how do oil companies make money? It's not by drilling more holes and selling it at $100 a barrel. It's trying to make those wells, make those sites efficient. So distribution efficiency, production efficiency.
Right, it's all efficiency.
So that's true,
right?
But there are a lot of other use cases where you can actually start to drive to better, whether it's patient outcomes in healthcare.
It's still more efficient.
Greater output. No, so it's also revenue generating.
Okay, so the question I have is, what happened between 5 years ago when the need existed to today, where suddenly IoT is the rage amongst all companies? Every company, the CEO has IoT strategy. So what's the business imperative, or is it purely a technical imperative?
Yeah, I would say, what's changed, and it depends on every industry, and I would say from the waste industry, the industry has changed. So the waste industry historically was one of consolidation. Acquisitions was how revenues grew. In the last 10 years or so, the industry has been characterized as being mature, and I guess you can see acquisition-free revenues, which are GDP plus a little, so slowing of growth. How do you grow earnings in that sort of environment? And so whereas there was technology 10 years ago that the waste companies, for example, could have used, I think you're in an environment that's pure that says earnings aren't growing. How do we continue to grow that to support our valuations? And so there's only so far you can go with cost cutting on labor side. And so technology is being viewed with a renewed vision, a view that it could potentially be something that can help it. And what we do every day is to help them reduce costs.
So would it be reasonable to say the convergence of sensor technology, computing technology, and 5G comes together to create the technical imperative and causes opportunities for more efficient operations?
I guess I would take a cut at that. I think one of the reasons you're seeing this kind of huge buzz around IoT is literally every technology sector is an IoT sector.
Right.
So whether from silicon all the way up to the cloud, right? So silicon into sensor, into gateway, into cloud stack. So bottom line is whether you're a storage company, networking company, security company, you're relevant to IoT. So in some sense, we just redefined technology, right? Having said that, I think the difference is this idea of 50 billion plus connected devices does change the paradigm, right? Can you make consumer experiences better? Can you make industrial processes more efficient, as you said? Can you make commercial applications more valuable?
Right.
And we're kind of taking technology, if you will, to the next level. So you do want to apply the power of AI, analytics, machine learning, deep learning. How do you leverage that technology in this connected world? That's the big idea.
Yeah, but I think there's some additional capabilities for IoT and why there's so much hype. Because if we talk about the focus of this particular session, there are things on the factory floor that are going to make things more efficient, but IoT writ large are about product transformation and then business transformation.
Right.
So there's this huge, if you take a industrial company, and I'll use Caterpillar because they talk about it, that if you look at, there are certainly going to be efficiencies about how do they build a tractor, but they're also changing their business model about how do they sell a tractor, in that they're no longer selling tractors, they're providing tractors as a service. And that fundamentally changes the business and how they're thinking about their business. And those kinds of transformations are what are going to lead the industry overall. That's why the hype is so great around the industry as a whole.
So in terms of maturity, do you think we have a mature infrastructure now that people can start investing in IoT and really seeing the benefits right away? Or are we still waiting to build the infrastructure before we reach that level? Let's start with our folks in energy.
I think it's a mix. So in the oil field, and I think in industrials generally, you've got a big split between a brownfield build and a greenfield build. And some companies are approaching it from, we want this all in the same network, whereas others are saying, a big oil and gas company in the US just announced this, all of our brownfield is going to be one network with these old sensors and old IoT sort of retrofitted on top of it. And then all of our greenfield is going to be a completely different system.
So I assume all of you are making money doing IoT?
Yeah.
You're not going to say yes?
We're starting.
No,
but
I will say yes.
Yeah, just one comment on this idea of business transformation, and that's exactly right. So the promise of IoT is not just about designing products better, making your process more efficient. It's about actually making. McKinsey talks about $40 trillion of economic value creation. Right. It happens kind of one sector, one site, one machine at a time. But it's really designing a better overall kind of economic model, right? If you can generate 1% to 2% more growth across those massive sectors, that's where the value comes from.
Yeah, from our perspective in our industry, I don't see it so much as a technology issue. I think the basic technologies that we use are there. They're not that gee whiz at the end of the day. I think what it is the actual implementation and execution. My view on this is that taking an off-the-shelf technology and trying to apply it to an industry or a vertical because it's a big industry and attractive, my view is it's doomed to fail. And so the strategy we've taken is that each industry, the waste industry, has its own peculiarities on how the conditions, the waste containers, where these containers are, the operating temperatures, the businesses that the companies are in, how they view data. And so we've taken a view is that in order to be successful, you kind of have to address that sector and really marry, I think, in a very good way, great technology with industry expertise and reputation. I think that's the only way that you make inroads. At the end of the day, the waste industry is really just a logistics business. The way I look at it, it's no different in many ways than FedEx or UPS.
Right.
The only difference is instead of delivering packages, we're picking up packages, essentially. And so what FedEx and UPS, you can find at almost real time where your package is. And it's been very good for them to be able to plot routes. I mean, at the end of the day, they also have routes. The driver goes on a route, but he doesn't stop at every office building just because it's a Tuesday. The waste industry has many of the same dynamics. If we don't stop at every stop just because it's Tuesday, but because we actually know the container's full, there are huge operating efficiencies to be gained from that.
So let's just talk a little bit about technology, and then I want to get to the audience here. Let's talk about blockchain. Really exciting, as exciting, maybe more exciting than IoT, to create like a whole strategy for custody of data. So what's the role of blockchain, and what's the role of security in IoT, both of them?
Well, the related questions, right? I think the primary use of blockchain in IoT will be in the security domain. Right. I mean, if you think about the control plane, the data plane, right, and then the infrastructure, where blockchain can make a difference is in the infrastructure, specifically in security, right, to make sure that the chain of custody of the data, data in motion, data at rest, fully encrypted end-to-end, full two-factor authentication, it will make a difference there.
Marc, are you guys?
Yeah, we spend an inordinate amount of time on security, and I think we're going to evolve from two-factor authentication to multi-factor authentication. The security, in my opinion, our industry has grown quite a bit. Our company has, since 2007, grown somewhere between 30% and 100+% annually each year. And with last year, we grew 40%. And so the growth is there, but the scary thing to me is industry-wide, we're still not doing what we need to do industry-wide around security. That's the issue that I believe that we're going to have to address as an industry over the next 12, 18 months.
So if you were to guess the size of IoT industry today, just broad-based, what do you think? It's $500 million, 10 billion, 1 trillion, what is it?
The problem with that is that you've got
Big.
You got massive companies like GE and mid-sized companies like PTC.
GE is not making money doing that.
Well, but what people are classing as IoT revenue is kind of all over the map.
Okay.
A lot of people taking old software services businesses, redefining it as IoT, right? So I think reality is it depends on the sector. So we've had some what I call single product hits in the consumer sector, which was all the rage 3 to 5 years ago when you talked about the first emergence. It was about the Nest thermostat and the drop cam camera, and Google paying billions of dollars to buy those things.
I still cannot make Nest work.
Well, so imagine an industrial customer trying to make all these disparate technologies, right? Putting the infrastructure, building the platform to make it work. It takes a while, right?
Right.
So it's emerging slowly. I would say that we're still probably in the sub-billion-dollar range as revenue.
Okay.
In terms of real IoT end-to-end systems.
No, so I think it's high, I think it's much higher than that.
Much higher,
and
okay.
So I mean, because we're not that big a percentage of the revenue that IoT has, and we'd be a big percentage of that. So I think though, to give the investors a sense of the growth. So at the beginning of 2015, we had 1.8 million billable units. At the end of 15, we had 3.2. Maybe off a year. Sorry, 14. 1.8 at the beginning of 15, whatever. 1.8, 3.2, 6.4. We're now well over 10 million. And so that's the annual growth in terms of billable units. And most of you have not heard of our company. So I gotta believe that within IBM, within Cisco, within GE, within a number of, it's much bigger than.
But you're classing your whole revenue stream as IoT?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's like GE taking all of the software service contracts and saying I have a $7 million business, right? Which, how much of that is IoT is really the question.
Yeah, well, anybody in the audience have a question? If not, then oh, there, yes, sir.
So is the money in IoT is more consulting services or is it product? Because where I come from, I don't see product guys make money as Professor David said. So where are people making money? Is it consulting services? Is it product? Is it people?
Yeah, I think, well, go ahead. Well, the way I would answer that is the hardware component of it is for us is a very key portion. We get data from that. It's a key component. That's what we started with. But in my view, it's a small part of what we offer and the value that we offer to our customers. And the value that we charge our customers and our customers pay us for is everything that's around that, is the analytics around the data. We also do customer service outreach on their behalf. We take orders on their behalf, so automatic work orders coming in through us to them. And so it's hard to just separate what it is, but we get paid, and it is clearly not just because we have a hardware that sends data. Nobody wants just data for data's sake. People want something that's digested in a useful way that they can make business decisions or actually automate some of that, and that's where we get paid for.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's 3 phases. First phase is services, because you have to actually deploy an end-to-end system. So you get to sell a little hardware up front, you get some early software, but it's really, we have a dozen of the leading developers in the world developing in our stack today because they see the revenue opportunity to go build an end-to-end digitization or IoT solution for a customer. Second phase will be kind of the infrastructure, the hardware, software that you build on a SaaS basis. But the real money down the road is in data itself, right? It's the data and the applications that cut across industries and customers. Right? So that's where the multi-billion-dollar opportunity lies in monetizing that data.
Yeah, I would say it actually lies, hopefully from our view, in the owner, right? So you've got a situation in Pemex, for instance, the national oil company from Mexico, had a situation where they had a pipeline that was shipping refined product that they were losing 40% of that product because people were actually stealing out of the pipeline. Application of Internet of Things for Saudi Aramco, for instance, could be, do you then go in all of our new greenfield pipeline and our brownfield pipeline and say, we're going to do leak detection in all of these, and how much revenue would that make us versus some of these guys here? We're going to pay them for a service, but to us, the owner, that could be billions of dollars potentially.
So let me ask you, so then if you read today's newspaper, I don't know how many of you are watching WikiLeaks. They just published a whole tool set from CIA called Vault 7 or something like that, right? And this is just based on smartphones, Android phones, stuff like that. So you talk about IoT, where there's like just 50 billion, 500 billion, a trillion devices out there, each one probably with not much data, but together they have a lot. And so then does security not become an intractable problem? Yeah. Instead of just bullshitting each other and telling us that there's security out there?
Yeah. No, again, to me, security is huge. And so I know we partnered with Intel and with Uber to create at different layers of the solution, the end-to-end system security. And I see a lot of that occurring today. I see security becoming more and more important in IoT, and again, I think it's the biggest threat that the industry has.
Right.
So you're going to see more and more partnerships and more alliances around how to think about things not discretely, not you have this layer, so what's secure over here, you have this layer, but how do you look at a solution and provide end-to-end security, everything from the device, which is, sort of the WikiLeaks says the device wasn't secure, the in-between was secure, and then perhaps the data center wasn't secure, to where it's all secured across multiple layers.
Any other questions from the, yes, sir?
One of the challenges I see with IoT is the exponential cost of servicing the software. And it's like, is the only solution subscription models? Like, how do you make money to not only pay for the constant, because you have to do updates like forever.
Right. So,
Right, correct.
Did you hear the question? It says one of the challenges is the exponential cost of servicing the software, upgrading the software, and how do you make money? Is it only the subscription model, right? Okay.
Yeah, so I think that there's a whole set of issues, but as the industry matures, and it's kind of how our strategy has evolved, we want to be the one-stop shop for software, because then you can start really lowering those costs. And once you've built the software, it's built. And then it's only the question of have you got the infrastructure in place with which to update it and keep it, alive for a long period of time. So what you're going to see from an industry perspective, at least we think, is that right now there are a gazillion companies out there. That's not going to work. You're going to need to have more of the stack or the entire stack in order to be able to be effective for large implementations.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on your security question. Of course, baby monitors caused most of the slowdown in the internet a few months ago. And that's just baby monitors. As we go to a trillion devices, the weaponization of the IoT sector is going to be a huge issue. And in fact, I attended a government session in Davos this year. Governments were discussing how to actually slow down the weaponization of IoT.
Right.
So I urge industry, all of us in industry, should start getting together, building a framework to secure and make IoT devices more safe.
Right.
Before this is imposed on us by government.
Good thought. Any other comments? All right. I think we are pretty much over time right now. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank our panelists, please. Thank you. Thank you.